secretario general de la presidencia, el embajador Papal, el embajador de la Santa Sede, la embajadora Surani, la directora del gabinete diplomático del primer ministro, el embajador Fotoklo, director de los países europeos de la Cancillería, la embajadora Shalom, la directora del gabinete diplomático de la presidencia, el vicealmirante Mikros, jefe del gabinete militar de la presidencia.
Presidente,
Second papal visit to Lesbos, Greece. The Pope's trip to Greece will be his second, following his one-day visit to the Greek island of Lesbos in 2016. During that trip, Pope Francis visited the refugee camp of Moria with the Patriarch of Constantinople, His Beatitude Bartholomew I, and the Archbishop of Athens and all Greece, Hieronymus II. He flew back to the Vatican with 3 Syrian refugee families. offering asylum to all 12 of them, including 6 children. The Moria refugee camp was closed down in September 2020 after a fire broke out and destroyed much of it. Theme of the Apostolic Journey to Greece. The logo for the Pope's Apostolic Journey to Greece is a ship traversing the troubled waters of our world, with the cross of Christ as its mast and its sails driven by the wind of the Holy Spirit. The theme for the Pope's visit to Greece is, "May we be increasingly open to God's surprises." The Greeks feel the effects of the pandemic and the recent financial crisis. The motto expresses the hope that the Pope's visit will bring a ray of light for the future of Greece, a country deeply rooted in the faith and having an illustrious past. second papal visit to Lesbos, Greece. The Pope's trip to Greece will be his second, following his one-day visit to the Greek island of Lesbos in 2016. During that trip, Pope Francis visited the refugee camp of Moria with the Patriarch of Constantinople, His Beatitude Bartholomew I, and the Archbishop of Athens and all Greece, Hieronymus II. He flew back to the Vatican with 3 Syrian refugee families, offering asylum to all 12 of them, including 6 children. The Moria refuge camp was closed down in September 2020 after a fire broke out and destroyed much of it. Theme of the Apostolic Journey to Greece. The logo for the Pope's Apostolic Journey to Greece is a ship traversing the troubled waters of our world, with the cross of Christ as its mast and its sails driven by the wind of the Holy Spirit. The theme for the Pope's visit to Greece is, "May we be increasingly open to God's surprises." The Greeks feel the effects of the pandemic and the recent financial crisis. The motto expresses the hope that the Pope's visit will bring a ray of light for the future of Greece, a country deeply rooted in the faith and having an illustrious past.
Laudetur Jesus Christus, praise be Jesus Christ. Welcome to the second leg coverage of Pope Francis's apostolic visit to Greece. After a wonderful and fruitful 2 days in the island nation of Cyprus. My name is Father Paul Samasumo on behalf of Vatican Media. I would like to welcome you joining us for this live broadcast on television, radio, wherever you are in the world. A very special welcome to our television viewers and radio listeners of Catholic TV, Catholic Faith Network, EWTN TV, English, EWTN TV English, Shalom World Network in the US, Shalom TV India, Salt and Light TV, Art Madashan TV, Luminous Radio India. We welcome those of you joining us through various Vatican Media channels such as Vatican News website or the Vatican News English YouTube channel, as well as the Vatican News Facebook live stream. If you are catching us on shortwave radio, welcome. We are glad that you could join us. You will find more detailed information about this apostolic voyage of Pope Francis in Greece on our website vaticannews.va. Pope Francis will shortly address Greek authorities, civil society, and members of the diplomatic corps accredited to Greece at the presidential palace. Actually, you remember that Pope Francis has been to Greece before. He visited the island of Lesbos in the year 2016. It was rather a private visit of Lesbos. Lesbos, as you know, has been a key entry point in Europe. As I was saying, you will remember that Pope Francis has been in Greece before. He visited the island of Lesbos in 2016 on a rather private visit. Lesbos indeed has been a key entry point in Europe for migrants and asylum seekers. This time on the apostolic voyage, Pope Francis is making an official visit to Greece in line with invitations from state and church authorities. He has a packed 2-day program, and we will be bringing you live transmissions of these events. The last time a pope officially visited Athens, the Greek capital, was when Pope St. John Paul II came to the country in May of the year 2001. Now, referring to Pope Francis' visit in Greece, Cardinal Pietro Parolin, the Secretary of State of the Holy See, told Vatican News that with this visit to Cyprus and Greece, where he is now, where the Holy Father is, the Holy Father seeks to transform the Mediterranean Sea from a space that divides to an opportunity for encounter. For those of you following us on TV, you can now see the Holy Father. They have just, with the President of Greece, they have just had an encounter, a private meeting, and now working to meet the diplomats, civil society. In the process of Pope Francis's visit, he wishes also to encourage Europe and, in fact, humanity to unity and not to abandon those in need. According to Cardinal Parolin, Pope Francis is aware that humanity is faced with many problems, but he would like to encourage, as it were, a multilateral approach to problems of the world. Pope Francis now approaching the dais together with President Katerina of Greece. So the fact that Pope Francis on this visit will return also to Lesbos, where he was in the year 2016 on a private visit, is testimony and speaks volumes of the concern for the suffering of those who make these desperate journeys. And yesterday, meeting refugees and migrants in Cyprus, he shared their suffering. And now President Katerina Sakelaropoulos, speaking. Your Holiness, it is with great honor and emotion that I welcome you to the Presidential Palace. Your visit to the second time in our country shows your keen interest in our region and in the wider Mediterranean region, as well as your constant concern for religious dialogue and the universality of Christianity. You also have shown great symbolic value, as this year we celebrate the 200th anniversary of the start of the Greek Revolution against the Ottoman yoke, which led to the creation of modern Greek state. Our people appreciate your love as well as your recognition of the important contribution to the great spirit of Western civilization and the Christian religion. Your strong message of faith and fraternity, which you convey to us in the footsteps of the apostles, symbolizes the Church's reference to her origins, to the sources of unity and concord and wisdom and joy of the gospel. In difficult times with great trials for humanity, such as the migration crisis, with the many refugees, poverty, climate change, and the pandemic, the contribution of religion and the Church is not only existential importance, but is not limited to believers alone. It is directly related to the politics of care and humanity, and paves the way for peaceful coexistence and prosperity for all of us. Safeguarding human dignity and social cohesion is the challenge that gives meaning to the relationship between ecclesial and secular authorities in a world society with inexhaustible potential, but also with painful contradictions. Your tireless and selfless offering to neighbor, your compassion for those in a position of weakness and need, the unfortunate and the offended, as well as your profound social sensitivity, characterizes your valuable work. They nurture and sharing reconciliation between societies and remove outdated prejudices and cultural wars of the past. You have consistently upheld international legitimacy and the rule of the law, fundamental principles underlying liberal democracy, which Greece also embraces and defends. Our shared understanding of values is the foundation of cooperation between the Vatican and our country, and the particular importance of all the challenges we face which transcend our national borders. The pandemic has shown how national vigilance and assistance between states is at the same time, you have pointed out the health crisis is an exercise in responsibility for all of us, especially through our daily behavior in supporting our neighbors. In the inexhaustible energy and inspiration of scientists, in the sacrifice of doctors and nurses, in the patience and adaptability of many, we recognize the uniqueness and richness of human nature in the face of a long and unprecedented ordeal. Today, the prospect of vaccination for the whole world, especially for the dispossessed, is the greatest and most pressing issue of distributive justice. The virus feeds and mutates from the irrational denial of reality and the inequalities of our culture. We know your interest in the environmental and regional environment and climate change with your interventions and messages in the international meetings and your urging of states to take more ambitious measures. As you have stressed, this is one of the greatest moral problems with reference to the lives and future generations. but also with dramatic consequences in the present, such as those experienced by Greece and other Mediterranean countries with the summer fires. The climate crisis is a top priority for Europe and requires a holistic approach to sustain development and a radical change in our way of life. In this context, Greece participates in international initiatives to protect cultural and natural heritage for the effects of climate change. Your initiatives for migration and refugee crisis and your presence in Lesbos testify to the importance of the problem and the great humanitarian dimension. You have repeatedly expressed your sensitivity to migrants and asylum seekers and called on the international community to join in dialogue and in a coordinated response to their inhuman exploitation. You have also systematically contributed to the management of the crisis and acknowledged the humanity of the Greeks and their disproportionate burden. For its part, our country is working to prevent human trafficking and political exploitation. Greece looks forward to working with the Holy See to protect Christian populations in areas where there is danger, persecution, and discrimination. The Vatican has already taken important steps in this direction through the world, particularly in the Middle East. Respect for the religious freedom of Christian communities and the preservation of monuments and cultural heritage is a prerequisite for the consolidation of pluralism and tolerance. At this point, I could not fail to mention the Hagia Sophia and thank you for your warm support so that it may remain an ecumenical symbol of religious worship and an emblematic monument of world heritage accessible to all. Your Holiness, your universal spiritual splendor, your multidimensional contribution to building a culture of solidarity and empathy inspire us with the deepest respect for your personality. And on behalf of the great people, I wish you and your entourage good health and longevity, as well as the strengthening of faith and Christian unity. Speech of Her Excellence, the President of Greece. President Katerina Seklaropoulou. And now the Holy Father will address the authorities, civil societies, and the diplomatic corps.
Signora Presidente della Repubblica,
Madam President of the Republic, members of the government and the diplomatic corps, distinguished religious and civil authorities, illustrious representatives of society and the world of culture, ladies and gentlemen, I offer you a cordial greeting and I thank Madam President for her words of welcome in your name and that of the citizens of Greece. It is an honor to be in this glorious city. I make my own the words of St. Gregory of Nazianzen, golden Athens, patroness of all that is good. In seeking eloquence, I found happiness. I come as a pilgrim to this land, rich in spirituality, culture, and cultivation, to find the same happiness that so thrilled the great fathers of the Church, the joy of cultivating wisdom and sharing beauty, a happiness that is not private and solitary, but born of wonder, yearns for the infinite, and is open to the community, a wisdom-filled happiness that from here spreads everywhere. Without Athens and without Greece, Europe and the world would not be the same not be what they are.
meno sapienti,
They would be less wise
felici.
and less happy.
Da qui gli orizzonti del
From this
mondo
place,
sono dilatati.
humanity's horizons expanded. I too feel invited to lift my gaze and let it rest on the highest part of the city, the Acropolis, visible from afar to the travelers who, over the millennium, have arrived here. It inevitably bespoke the presence of God, the divine, the call to expand our horizon to what is high, from Mount Olympus to the Acropolis to Mount Athos. Greece invites men and women of every age to direct their journey of life towards the heights, towards God, for we need transcendence in order to be truly human. Today in the West, what emerged from here, there is a forgetfulness of our need for heaven, trapped us as we are between the frenzy of the thousand earthly concerns, the insatiable greed of a dispersonalizing consumerism. Yet places such as these invite us to feel wonder before the infinite, the beauty of being, and the joy of faith. Here were the paths traveled by the gospel, uniting East and West, the holy places in Europe, Jerusalem and Rome, in order to bring to the world and the good news of God, lover of humankind. The Gospels were written in Greek, the undying language in which the Word, the Logos, expressed himself, the language of human wisdom, which became the voice of divine wisdom. In this city, our gaze is directed not only to what is on high, but also towards others. We are reminded of this by the sea, which Athens borders and which has shaped the vocation of this land, set in the heart of the Mediterranean, to be a bridge connecting different people. Here, great historians sought to recount the histories of people near and far. Here, according to the celebrated words of Socrates, people began to view themselves as citizens, and not only of a single city or a single country, but of the entire world, citizens. Here, men first become conscious of being a political animal, and as members of the community, began to see others, not subjects, but as fellow citizens, with whom to work together in organizing the polis. Here, democracy was born. That cradle, thousands of years, was to become a house, a great house of democratic peoples. I'm speaking of the European Union and the dream of peace and fraternity that it represents for so many people. Yet we cannot avoid noting with concern how today, and not only in Europe, we are witnessing a retreat from democracy. Democracy requires participation and involvement on the part of all. Consequently, it demands hard work and patience. It is complex, whereas authoritarianism is peremptory and populism, easy answers appear to be attractive. In some societies, concern for the security endowed by the consumerism, weariness, malcontent can lead to a sort of skepticism about democracy. Yet, universal participation is something essential, not simply to attain shared goals, but also because it corresponds to what we are, social beings, at once unique and interdependent. At the same time, we are also witnessing a skepticism about democracy provoked by the distance of institutions, by fear of a loss of identity, by bureaucracy. The remedy is not to be found in an obsessive quest for popularity, in a thirst for visibility, in a flurry of unrealistic promises, or in adherence to forms of ideological colonization, but in good politics. For politics is and ought to be in practice a good thing, as the supreme responsibility of citizens and as the art of the common good, so that the good can be truly shared. Particular attention, I would even say priority, should be given to the weaker strata of society. This is the direction to take. One of Europe's founding fathers indicated it as an antidote to polarization that can enliven democracy, but also risk debilitating it. As he said, there is much talk of who is moving left or right, but the decisive thing is to move forward. And move forward means to move towards social justice. Here, a change of direction is needed, even as fears and theories amplified by virtual communication are daily spread to create division. Let us help one another, instead, to pass from partisanship to participating, from committing ourselves to supporting our party alone, to engaging ourselves actively for the promotion of all. From partisanship to participation. This is what should motivate our actions on a variety of fronts. I think of the climate, the pandemic, the common market, and above all, the widespread forms of poverty. These are challenges that call for concrete and active cooperation. The international community needs this in order to open up paths of peace through multilateralism that will not end up being stifled by excessive nationalistic demands. Politics needs this in order to put common needs ahead of private interests. It might seem a utopia, a hopeless journey over a turbulent sea, a long and unachievable odyssey. Yet, as the great Homeric epic tells us, traveling over stormy seas is often our only choice, and it will achieve its goal if it is driven by the desire to come home port, by the effort to move forward. Here I would like to renew my appreciation for the perseverance that led to the Prespa Agreement signed between the Republic and that of North Macedonia. Looking once more to the Mediterranean, the sea that opens us to others, I think of its fertile shores, the trees that can serve as a symbol, the olive, whose yield has just been collected. The olive tree unites different lands bordering this sea. It is sad to see how, in recent years, many age-old olive trees have been burned, consumed by fires, often caused by adverse weather conditions, provoked in turn by climate change. Against the scarred landscape of this marvelous country, the olive tree can symbolize the determination to tackle the climate crisis and its devastation. After the primordial cataclysm related by the Bible, the great flood, a dove returned to Noah, carrying in its beak a freshly plucked olive leaf. That was the symbol of recovery, of the strength to begin anew by changing our way of life, renewing our proper relationship with the Creator, other creatures, and all creation. It is my hope in this regard that the commitments assumed in the fight against climate changes may be more fully shared and seriously implemented rather than remaining a mere facade. May words be followed by deeds, lest children once more have to pay for the hypocrisy of their fathers. We are reminded of the words of Homer placed on the lips of Achilles, "Hateful in my eyes, even as the gates of Hades, is the man who hides one thing in his heart and says another." In Scripture, the olive is also associated with the call to fellowship, especially with regard to those who do not belong to one's people. When you beat your olive trees, do not strip what is left. It shall be for the alien. The Bible tells us. This country, naturally welcoming, has seen on some of its islands the arrival of numbers of our migrant brothers and sisters greater than the number of their native inhabitants. This has heightened the difficulties still felt in the aftermath of the economic crisis. Yet, Europe also continues to temporize. The European community, prey to forms of nationalistic self-interest, rather than being an engine of solidarity, appears at times blocked and uncoordinated. In the past, ideological conflicts prevented the building of bridges between Eastern and Western Europe. Today, the issue of migration has led to breaches between South and North as well. I would like to encourage once again a global communitarian vision with regard to the issue of migration, and to use that attention be paid to those in great need, so that in proportion to what each country means, they will be welcomed, protected, promoted, and integrated in full respect for their human rights and dignity. Rather than present obstacle, this represents a guarantee for the future, marked by peaceful coexistence with all those who increasingly are forced to flee in search of a new home, a new hope. They are the protagonists of a horrendous modern odyssey. I like to recall that when Odysseus landed in Ithaca, he was recognized not by the local lords who had usurped his house and goods, but by the person who cared for him, his old nurse. He recognized him by seeing his wounds. Suffering brings us together. Realizing that we are all part of the same frail humanity will help us build a more integrated and peaceful future. Let us turn what seems only tragic calamity into a bold opportunity. The pandemic is itself the great calamity. It has made us rediscover our own weakness and our need for others. In this country too, it poses a challenge that calls for suitable interventions by the authorities. I think of the necessary vaccination campaign and not a few sacrifices on the part of citizens. Amid great hardship, there has also been a remarkable growth in solidarity, to which the local Catholic Church is happy to continue to contribute, in the conviction that it represents a benefit not to be lost once the storm gradually subsides. Some words of the oath of Hippocrates seem written for our time, such as the commitment to follow that regimen I judge best for the benefit of the sick, and to abstain from whatever is harmful and offensive to others, to safeguarding life at every moment, particularly in the mother's womb. The right of all to care and treatment must always be respected, so that those most vulnerable, particularly the elderly, may never be discarded. For life is a right, not
segno.
The elders are a sign of wisdom for a people.
La vita è infatti un
For life is a
non
right,
una morte,
not
la
death.
quale va accolta.
Death is to be accepted, not administered.
Cari amici,
Dear friends,
alcuni esemplari
some
del
Mediterranean
Mediterraneo
olive trees
testimoniano
are
una
so
vita
ancient
lunga da
they predate the
la
coming of
comparsa di
Christ.
Cristo. Secolari e
Age-old,
duratori,
enduring,
resistiti al
resistant to the ravages of time. They remind us of the importance of preserving deep roots, fortified by memory. This country can rightly be called the memory of Europe. You are the memory of Europe, and I'm happy to visit 20 years after the historic visit of Pope John Paul II, and in this year, that marks the bicentenary of his independence. I think of the well-known words of General Kolokotronis: God has set his signature on the freedom of Greece. God readily sets his signature on human freedom, always and everywhere. It's a great gift to us, and the gift that in turn he values most from us. For God created us to be free, and what most pleases him is that in freedom we love him and our neighbor. Laws exist to help make this possible, but also training in responsibility and the growth of a culture of respect. Here, I will again express my gratitude to the public recognition of the Catholic community. I assure you of its desire to promote the common good of Greek society, directing to that end its innate universality, in the hope that in the practice the conditions needed to carry out this service effectively will always be guaranteed. 200 years ago, the provisional government of this country addressed Catholics in these touching words: Christ has commanded us to love our neighbor. Yet who among our neighbors is closer than you, our fellow citizens, despite certain ritual differences? We have the same fatherland. We are one people, brothers in roots, in growth, and in the fruits. We are Christians and brethren under the Holy Cross. To be Christians under the sign of cross in this country blessed by faith and its Christian traditions spurs all believers in Christ to cultivate communion at every level, in the name of God, who embraces all with his mercy. I thank, in this sense, dear brothers and sisters, I thank you for your commitment in this regard and encourage you to guide this country in ways of openness, inclusion, and justice. From this city, from this cradle of civilization, may there ever continue to respond a message that lifts our gaze both on high and towards others, that democracy may be the response to the siren songs of authoritarianism, and that individualism and indifference may be overcome by concern for the poor and creation. For these are essential foundations for the renewed humanity which our time and our Europe has need. May God bless Greece, the Holy Father says in Greek. A very, very touching message there to Greek authorities, civil society, diplomatic corps, leading dignitaries from the world of culture, calling upon Greek society to rediscover its roots as the cradle of democracy, and using the olive tree, the olives, which are abundant and grow in this Mediterranean country, as something that teaches us about the ways of life. And now the Holy Father has ended the address, and together with the President, they leave the seat where this meeting was being held. Earlier on, the President of Greece also spoke of her joy in meeting Pope Francis here, and also of the Greek people in welcoming the Pope to this country. And now Pope Francis, working together with the Greek President, President Katerina, to another engagement that will be held this afternoon. It is amazing how the Holy Father was able to connect historically the various facets of history here in this land. The Holy Father is now signing, I think, what should be the visitor's book, that he has been to this presidential palace. And he did speak a lot about the need for a multilateral approach to the problems of the world. The world is facing so many challenges, from climate change, emergencies, floods, and the fires that the Holy Father spoke about in his address, which are destroying the olive trees, some of which date before even the birth of Christ. So the Holy Father says the only approach is a multilateral approach, and not to be taken in by shortcuts for populism. Pope Francis also keen to appeal to the conscience of Europe and invite the continent to rediscover its Christian roots and find its unity, even with the different visions that can coexist. At the same time, he was speaking to us all, the whole of humanity. Now there is an exchange of gifts, and the President Katerina is presenting Pope Francis with a special
Santidad, permítame que le dé un don especial. Es una réplica.
It's a replica
un mosaico, el
of
cual representa
which represents
uvas, es un viñedo,
the olive.
Representa las hojas del viñedo que se encuentra en una iglesia paleocristiana de Atenas en la región de Ilusión.
So they presented the Holy Father with the beautiful mosaic picture, and the President of Greece is explaining the significance of this gift. So the Holy Father, as a Pope, also did refer to the issue of migration, and he's saying that it's a phenomena that has been going on for years, and Greece has received for many, many years different people who have always come to its shores, running away, fleeing from various conflicts.
Προσφέρω ένα δείγμα παραδοσιακών προϊόντων της χώρας μας για το οποίο είμαστε περήφανοι με αγάπη.
So
gama de productos que son típicos de Grecia, del cual estamos muy orgullosos, nuestros productos griegos.
And the Holy Father has also been presented with various Greek products there, and he's thanking the Holy Father, thanking the President for the gifts. And also the Holy Father now also presenting a medal of the representing the gift he has brought. It's a huge medal which is put in a frame, as well as giving the rosaries, to very special rosaries and medal to the President of Greece. Very beautiful exchange of gifts there. Apart from the issues that the Pope alluded to in his address to civil authorities, and I'm sure it's an issue that he's going to return to, Pope Francis is generally acknowledged for his wish to grow ties between Catholics and the Orthodox. So he spoke of how the openness of the Greek society was to the Catholics. One way Pope Francis has tried to grow ties between Catholics and the Orthodox Church has been to visit them. He has already been to several majority Orthodox countries, including Georgia, Armenia, Romania, Bulgaria, the Republic of North Macedonia. Historically, the relations between the Orthodox Church and the Catholic Church have not always been easy, but they have improved a lot. You might remember the schism of the year 1054 between the Church of Rome and Constantinople. Then Constantinople was the capital of the Byzantine Empire. Today Constantinople is Istanbul. And while the Pope now has left the presidential palace and he is in his Fiat 500, that brings us to the end of this particular event, Pope Francis meeting with authorities, civil society, and diplomats. My name is Father Paul Samasumo. On behalf of Vatican Media, thank you for joining our continued coverage of Pope Francis's apostolic voyage in Greece. But before we go, do allow me to acknowledge television viewers and radio listeners, especially of Catholic TV, Catholic Faith Network, EWTN TV, Shalom World Networks, Shalom TV India, Salt and Light TV, Atmadashan TV, Luminous Radio. Enjoy the rest of your day. Laudetur Jesus Christus, praise be Jesus Christ.
Greece, a Christian nation with a torch of faith lit by St. Andrew the Apostle. The Holy Father visits the cradle of Western civilization and culture with the message, may we be increasingly open to God's surprises.